Fred Vasseur just answered the question every Formula One fan has been asking since Suzuka. Why did Lewis Hamilton have less power than Charles Leclerc in the same car on the same day, running the same Ferrari power unit? Hamilton asked his team directly after the race. He got nothing. His engineer went quiet. The radio cut to silence. Vasseur finally broke that silence after the checkered flag, and his explanation was not a mechanical fault. It was not a software error. It was something far more complicated than that. That was Sunday, March 29, 2026, 3 races into the new era. By the time Vasseur walked to the microphone, Hamilton had already dropped from 3rd to 6th in the final 15 laps. And the gap between what he experienced and what his teammate experienced in the same Ferrari was about to become the biggest talking point of the season so far. What actually happened at Suzuka? Here is what happened on the Suzuka circuit and why Vasseur's answer raises more questions than it settles. Hamilton qualified 6th. Leclerc qualified 4th. Neither driver was particularly close to Mercedes at the front, with Leclerc sitting roughly 6/10 off pole and Hamilton around 8/10 adrift. George Russell took pole for Mercedes. Kimi Antonelli lined up 2nd. The qualifying pace told a clear story about who had the fastest car, and it was not Ferrari. But qualifying and racing are different animals, especially under the 2026 regulations, where energy management over a full race distance can reshuffle the order completely. The race at Suzuka started cleanly. Ferrari ran both cars in formation through the opening stint, managing tires, managing battery deployment, keeping the Mercedes pair honest without burning through their electrical reserves too early. Hamilton settled into a rhythm. The car felt good. The degradation was manageable. He was running where the team expected him to run. Then a mid-race safety car bunched the entire field together, and Hamilton made the most of it. He passed George Russell on the restart, drove cleanly into 3rd position, and for roughly a dozen laps looked locked in for back-to-back podiums after his maiden Ferrari rostrum in China 1 week earlier. The SF26 was working, Hamilton was working, the result looked secure. Then, somewhere around the final 15 laps, everything unraveled. Leclerc closed on him through the back straight and drove past. Russell repassed him shortly after. Then Lando Norris swept through in the McLaren. 3rd became 6th in the space of a handful of laps, and the speed at which it happened was startling. Live timing showed Hamilton losing roughly March 10th per lap to the Leclerc-Russell battle ahead of him, and his radio told the rest of the story in real time. The messages were blunt. Less deployment. Why did Leclerc just catch him down the back straight? He needed power. And as Norris drove past on the pit straight, the McLaren had so much more than he did. Hamilton's post-race demand. After the checkered flag, Hamilton went silent on the radio entirely. No cool-down lap comments, no acknowledgement, just silence. That alone tells you everything about where his head was. But here is the detail that everyone missed at the time. The post-race reaction was sharp. Hamilton made it clear, point blank, that Leclerc had more power than him. Same team, same engine, same race. He was at full throttle, managing where the team asked him to manage, and still lacking power. The question was whether something was wrong with his car. Not whether the strategy was wrong, not whether the tires were gone, but whether the car itself was producing less than his teammates. That is not the kind of thing a 7-time world champion says casually. That is a driver who felt the difference in the machine underneath him and wants the engineering data to either confirm it or explain it away. And the way he said it, without hedging, without softening the accusation, made it clear this was not frustration talking. This was a demand. The Ferrari team principal's response centered entirely on the mechanics of the 2026 regulations rather than any hardware difference between the two cars. The explanation was the overtake mode system. How the 2026 overtake mode works. To understand what he meant, you need to understand how power works in these new cars. The 2026 power units run on a roughly 50-50th split between the internal combustion engine, producing around 500 brake horsepower, and the electrical system, which now delivers another 500 brake horsepower through a massively upgraded motor generator unit. The old motor generator unit in the previous generation of cars produced around 160 brake horsepower. The new one produces more than 3 times that, which means electrical energy is no longer a supplement. It is half the car's total output. The old drag reduction system, the adjustable rear wing that used to give a trailing driver a speed boost on straights, is gone. In its place is an energy-based overtake mode, a proximity-activated electrical boost that only becomes available when a driver is within 1 second of the car ahead. Think of it as the old system's replacement, except instead of a mechanical wing flap, the car dumps extra electrical energy into the drivetrain. More power, same straight, bigger speed advantage, but only if you are close enough to trigger it. The mechanism works like this. When Hamilton lost contact with the car in front, when the gap stretched beyond that 1 second threshold, he also lost access to the overtake mode boost. The negative feedback loop explained. Without the boost, Ferrari's straight-line speed deficit became fully exposed. Without the straight-line speed, Hamilton could not close the gap back to within 1 second. And without closing the gap, the overtake mode stayed locked out. The cascade accelerated. Every lap made the next lap worse. It was a negative feedback loop. And once Hamilton was inside it, there was no way out. Leclerc's tactical chess move. Leclerc, by contrast, was very clever about the whole thing. He was sometimes deliberately letting Russell get ahead in the final chicane, just so he could sit within the 1 second window and use the overtake mode boost into turn 1 to repass. That is tactical energy management at an extremely high level. Leclerc was gaming the proximity threshold. He understood that the overtake mode is not just a weapon for attacking. It is a resource you need to stay in the fight. Lose it, and you become a sitting duck on every straight. Leclerc kept it. Hamilton lost it. And what makes Leclerc's approach even more impressive is that it required him to accept short-term pain for long-term gain. Deliberately giving up a position in the chicane looks bad on the live timing screens. It looks like you are going backwards. But Leclerc understood the energy economy of the 2026 cars well enough to know that one lost position through a slow corner was worth the electrical boost he would gain down the following straight. He was thinking 2 moves ahead. He was treating every lap like a negotiation with the power unit, trading mechanical grip for electrical deployment, adjusting the balance in real time depending on who was ahead and how far away they were. Hamilton, by contrast, appeared to be driving the car the way he has always driven. Flat out. Maximize everything. Trust the machine to deliver. And for the first 2/3 of the race, it did. The problem only surfaced when the gap opened. The overtake mode disappeared, and the cascade began. By then, no amount of raw driving talent could compensate for a system-level disadvantage. And the timing of what happened next was almost too perfect. Because the one thing Vasseur never did was directly confirm Hamilton's specific complaint. The overtake mode dynamic was acknowledged. The cascade effect was laid out clearly. But the specific question of whether Hamilton's car was producing the same output as Leclerc's was sidestepped. The matter was not addressed further. That is not a yes. That is not a no. That is a team principal choosing his words very carefully with the cameras rolling.